The headline news: Red Dead Redemption is now playable on Xbox One X at a true native 4K. Ahead of the sequel's promised October 2018 release date, the original game is added to a growing list of Back-Compat Xbox 360 titles running on X hardware via emulation. And it works beautifully, keeping the original 360 code intact at a renderer level and even maintaining its 2x multi-sample anti-aliasing while increasing resolution to 3840 by 2160. The fact it's running at 9x the pixel count of the original game also marks something of a first. Notoriously, Red Dead Redemption has no PC release. And since a standard Xbox One keeps its resolution at 1280 by 720 with no change from that original 360 version, this is the first time Rockstar's work has ever been seen through a higher res lens. All of which brings certain details to light. At 4K, effects like heat haze and light shafts stand out more than ever as you walk down Armadillo Town streets. Even small animations from NPCs as you pass are easier to pick out, and on a clear night, the bed of stars overhead looks pin sharp as the camera pans around. Yes, the textures and even HUD elements still rely on the exact same Xbox 360 assets. There's no swapping in of 4K maps here. And while there is a rigid, somewhat angular look to Rockstar's creation that hints at last gen limits in poly count, this world still often holds up convincingly as a modern title. Much like other Back-Compat supported games like Crackdown or Forza Horizon, Xbox One X's res bump only seems to flatter the original work. But are there any other enhancements in shadows, LODs, or even effects? Could this be the PC version we never received, or is a jump to 4K the extent of it? Presumably many of these variables, shadows for example, could be tweaked without bloating the patch size, giving settings that better fit an Ultra HD display. As it turns out, Red Dead Redemption is emulated faithfully here, and barring one extra, there are really no other augmentations. That one extra being, of course, the push to 16x anisotropic filtering, in line with most 360 games getting X support, with exceptions like The Witcher 2 for example. Boosting texture filtering quality is a relatively easy win. It's a low GPU cost but effective visual gain that doesn't tamper with the game logic. Again, the core assets are the same, but a close-up here shows anything presented at oblique angles goes from a blurry smudge on 360 to crisp and sharp on Xbox One X. It really wouldn't have worked otherwise. The original 360 version ran with a restrictive bitmap sampling range, a point that sticks out even at 720p. That's the extent of the upgrades. Foliage density and even draw distance stay exactly the same as the original release. A PC version style upgrade with pushed out settings is off the cards here. Visually speaking, this ticks the boxes with a 4K res boost and 16x texture filtering, but the rest is left as is. Shadow Resolution 2 runs at the same level as Xbox 360, though in fairness, the quality here is still acceptable by today's standards. The package as a whole really speaks to the work Rockstar put into its Rage engine back in 2010. As a follow-up to Grand Theft Auto 4, Red Dead Redemption settled for a sparser but more open terrain. Gone were the skyscrapers and streets packed with NPCs and cars, the payoff here being less distracting draw distances for geometry and foliage that helps it hold up today. Now, if you'll remember, a regular Xbox One playback of the game simulates the 360 version down to the pixel. Visuals are replicated precisely with no intent of an upgrade. With that being said, the one area that did improve with the standard Xbox One is in frame rate, where the game ran fully V-synced, in the process removing screen tear evident in the original. So in a side-by-side comparison between a 360 and Xbox One X, this more or less translates to the kind of image quality boost you'll get, supposing you're considering jumping from a base Xbox One to an X console. The other big advantage to playing Red Dead Redemption on Xbox One X is in overall frame rate smoothness. Okay, we're still looking at a 30 frames per second lock on the system. Any dream of pushing to 60 FPS is really off the cards. But the fact is, this takes the crown as the smoothest way to play the game today. Running through some of the biggest stress tests in the game's first few hours, you can expect a near flawless execution of the code. It's quite a remarkable achievement given that 9x boost in pixels and even memory bandwidth intensive effects don't cause an issue for the engine. If we compare all three ways to play the game on Xbox systems, the pecking order goes from left to right, worst to best. Xbox One X keeps that VSync engaged, though in truth screen tear was only rarely visible on the 360 version, tucked away at the very top of the screen. More problematic for that original version is the hard drops to the 20 FPS line, during the intro sequence and on pretty much any character close-up. But by comparison, the turnout here is a straight 30 FPS line all the way through on X, even at points where a base Xbox One drops a few frames. Okay, it isn't entirely without fault. Clearly the Xbox One X's handling of the 360 emulator has a small quirk in frame pacing. Supposing the frame rate drops by 1 frame on X hardware, what you'll usually see is a spike to 16 milliseconds shortly afterwards. Essentially what's happening here is an extra rendered frame is introduced, as if to balance out the one that dropped a second earlier, causing 2 consecutive unique frames in a row. It's really uncommon in my experience though, only a footnote to the performance review overall. This adds a little extra stutter every now and then, which you wouldn't get on 360 or a base Xbox One, but in general, frame rates are undoubtedly smoother. As a free update for the Xbox One, it's hard to complain. Sure, we'd love to see a 60 FPS rendition of Red Dead Redemption, and yes, we'd even relish the chance to see it rendering with a 4K texture pack, and other tweaks and changes in LODs, effects, lighting or shadows. What we have instead is a straight 4K delivery of a classic game, which for most should be enough. The bonus of 16 times anisotropic filtering and offering the best frame rate possible on any format also means the Xbox One X supplants the standard Xbox One as the definitive way to play the game. Meanwhile, if the talking point is how a PC version could have hypothetically looked at max settings, Xbox One X gives us the closest example by far. Red Dead Redemption is possibly the biggest game to hit Xbox One X's Back-Compat library to date, as a warm-up to the sequel later this year is also a real feather in the system's cap, a perfect way to refresh your memory ahead of that release. There is a massive what if hanging over Rockstar's other older games though, especially with X support working so handsomely here. I'd personally love to see Grand Theft Auto 4 revived in a similar way, and even the lesser known but quite brilliant table tennis. But I'd like to hand it over to you. What would you like to see on the Back-Compat program that hasn't already made the cut? Do let me know in the comments, and in any case, if you enjoyed this analysis, let me know by liking or even subscribing to our channel. And as ever, a 4K source file to this video is also available on our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net. Until next time though, thanks for watching.